Welcome, friends. Are you sitting comfortably? Today I would like to tell you the tale of the Devil's Pulpit in Stirlingshire, Scotland. It is a short, steep glen which runs east from Finnich Bridge on the A809. It was carved from the red sandstone over many years. Finnich Glen stands untouched by time, its dark curse still lingering today. Travellers come and go, but few return unscathed, forever haunted by the whispers and shadows that dwell there. This story is about a man who once ventured too close and is now a prisoner of the stone, with his soul being bound to the glen forever. Even today, as night falls, the devil's voice still echoes faintly through the water, waiting for the next soul brave or foolish enough to cross its path. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the rustle of leaves as the trees whispered secrets to one another. Far below, in the valley of Finnich Glen, a strange aura clung to the land like a heavy fog. This was the place they spoke of in hushed tones, a place where no one should venture, a place where ancient evil stirred beneath the earth. The story of the Devil's Pulpit begins long ago, when Finnich Glen was still a shadowy realm where mortals dared not tread. The legend tells of a narrow, treacherous path that wound down into the heart of the glen, hidden from view by thick, tangled underbrush. Local villagers warned of the dangers lying in wait, dark forces that twisted the very soul of the land. To approach was to court doom, for the devil himself was said to stand at the base of the cliff, watching, waiting. No one dared enter the glen, for the path was cursed. Those who had ventured down into the eerie ravine were never seen again. But there was always one, a curious soul, eager to disprove the ancient warnings. The chilling whispers of the glen called to him like a siren's song, beckoning him into its deadly embrace. As the figure descended the winding trail, the air grew colder, and the light from the sun seemed to retreat, as if it dared not cast its warmth on the cursed ground below. The further he went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their twisted branches clawing at the sky like the fingers of long-forgotten spirits. The path, slippery with moss and wet leaves, narrowed with each step, and the man could hear the faint rush of water somewhere deep within the ravine. The sounds of the forest, once alive with birds and rustling creatures, fell eerily silent, leaving only the sound of his own breath. He had heard the stories, the chilling tales passed down from generation to generation. The Devil's Pulpit, the ancient stone formation that stood tall and foreboding above the valley, was said to be where dark rituals took place. It was said that the devil himself had once stood atop it, delivering his sermons to the damned, calling forth shadows from the deep recesses of the earth. Despite the warnings, the man pressed on, driven by a thirst for knowledge, or perhaps a death wish. At the heart of the glen stood the towering rock, its shape unmistakable, a jagged, pulpit-like formation rising from the earth, as if it were an altar carved by demonic hands. As the man approached the Devil's Pulpit, he felt an overwhelming sensation of being watched. His heart pounded in his chest, and his breath quickened, but his legs carried him forward, step by hesitant step. The air here was thick, as if every breath was laced with the scent of decay. The stone pulpit loomed before him, its blackened surface slick with dampness, casting long, jagged shadows against the walls of the ravine. On the stone surface, strange markings were etched, symbols twisted and foreign, as if written by something that existed outside of time itself. The man knelt beside it, tracing one of the symbols with his finger. A chill shot through him, as if the very act of touching the stone had awakened something deep beneath the earth. The ground trembled slightly, and the trees around him creaked as if in protest. He pulled his hand away, but the damage had been done. The atmosphere around him seemed to shift, thickening into something malevolent. He could hear whispers now, faint and distant, rising from the depths of the ravine. They were not the voices of the living. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if the earth itself was speaking through the stones. The wind howled, and the air grew cold, bitter cold. The man stood frozen, a sudden dread taking hold of his very soul. He tried to move, but his legs were heavy, as if some unseen force had pinned him to the ground. The air hummed with a sinister energy, and then, from deep within the gorge, the ground rumbled. He heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, and heavy, coming from the darkness beyond the devil's pulpit. Suddenly he saw it, a figure, tall and imposing, cloaked in shadows. The figure emerged from the dark depths of the ravine, stepping onto the stone pulpit with ease, as if it had been waiting for him. The figure's face was obscured, but the air around it pulsed with a dark, suffocating energy. The man's breath caught in his throat as he realized who, or what, stood before him. The devil, the very embodiment of darkness, standing upon the stone altar, as if delivering a sermon to the lost souls of the glen. The figure raised its arms, and the winds howled louder, rattling the trees like brittle bones. The whispers became clearer, growing into an insidious chant that filled the air with the promise of eternal damnation. The earth trembled violently now, as if the very foundations of the glen were cracking open. The devil's presence pressed down on the man like a weight, suffocating him. The man's vision blurred, and he felt the ground beneath him start to shift. The rock of the devil's pulpit cracked, its surface splitting open, revealing dark fissures that led deep into the bowels of the earth. From these cracks, a cold black mist began to pour, swirling around his legs, climbing up his body, filling his lungs with a suffocating darkness. The whispers turned to screams, agonized, pleading, as if the souls of those who had entered the glen before him were trapped within the very stone, eternally calling for release. The man fell to his knees, gasping for breath, but the mist had already begun to take hold of him. His body grew heavy, as if it no longer belonged to him. He could feel the pull of the abyss, drawing him closer to the dark void below. And then, from the heart of the storm, he heard a voice, low, rumbling, and filled with centuries of malice. The devil spoke, but it was not in words. It was a command, a promise. The man would never leave the glen. His soul would be bound to the pulpit, like those before him. The storm raged as the mist enveloped the man completely, his screams lost in the howling wind. The devil's pulpit stood tall above the ravine, its dark influence spreading like a contagion. The next morning the glen was quiet once more. The mist had dissipated, and the sun shone weakly through the trees. But there was something wrong. The air felt wrong, heavy with the weight of an ancient curse. If you were to venture down the same path today, you will find the devil's pulpit standing as it always has, silent, foreboding, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to challenge its power. Follow the same path down to the stream, and you will see the faintest trace of a shadow lingering at the foot of the stone, just where the man had fallen. Today, the glen keeps its dark secret hidden deep within the earth, always waiting for the next soul. There you have it. Another chilling tale from the heart of Scottish folklore. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell for future Scottish stories and myths. Bye for now.